Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thank you very much, Michael.
Now I'm going to get your slides ready.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. You're crystal clear, and I'll get your slides ready to go. And the floor is yours, my friend. All over to you.
Thank you. Um, let's see if the slides can scroll up.
Yep.
Uh, the focus of this training is on how to maintain a healthy brain, as you can see there. As Michael noted, we're not going to be talking about particular ailments associated with that. Hopefully, it's a bit more on a more positive level than some of the presentations in the past. Let's go next, Michael. I do want to reiterate what Michael was talking about, that um, we cannot say this product or procedure can prevent, treat, or mitigate or cure any disease or medical malady. I mean, that's an agreement that was made a number of years ago, actually in the early 90s, that nutrition companies wouldn't have to go through clinical trials, but on the other hand, they couldn't make those sorts of claims. So we can't say additionally, we can't say you need to ought to or ought to start taking that. That's what we call plain doctor and not appropriate. But what we can say is that this has been shown to help support brain health and abilities. I mean, after all, it's abilities that are important, like memory, focus, mood, having a positive attitude. Um, those are our abilities, and we can talk about how these different products, or certainly the ingredients, facilitate that. And we can say this may help reduce the risk for age-related cognitive decline. That's a term, at least in the United States, that's been approved, but because aging is basically part of living. So age-related cognitive decline is okay to say. And we can also say this is, or you can say, and probably this is the most powerful, that this has helped me. Try it and see what it can do for you. That's the ultimate test. Next. So I need to say my next a little quicker. Cognitive decline is an extraordinary epidemic. Baby boomers, as we're called in the United States, who were born shortly after World War II, are in the age bracket where we tend to have more cognitive difficulties. And there are a variety of other things, some of which I'm going to be reviewing in our diets and our lifestyles, etc., that contribute to this age-related cognitive decline. So it is a real problem, and it's growing. You'll see there that 1 out of 8 people over 60 complain of memory problems. 1 in 4 of those of us over 74 years of age report such problems. And by the time we're 85, it's like a 50-50 proposition that we're going to have some serious cognitive decline if we don't take some steps to prevent that. Next. Sorry. That last showed that rates are climbing. Now, why is this a real health crisis? Um, well, cognitive decline is among the most costly conditions families can face in terms of stress and finances. When I first heard that, I was working for the Alzheimer's Association. I was a master trainer for them here in the US. And I thought, how can that be? There's no major operations. But the cost is for care. People who have these serious cognitive difficulties generally continue on that downward spiral until they can no longer fully take care of themselves, at least not at home by their spouse. So they end up having home health come into the home at about $60 an hour, or they end up in what might be called institutional care on a memory care ward. I presented last month at uh, care center, and they had a memory care ward. And after my presentation, I was talking with the woman that invited me, and I said, "How much does it cost to be on the your memory care ward?" And she said, "It's about 100,000 per year, about $10,000 a month. So this can be very expensive as well as a real challenge, not only on the finances, but the nerves of family members, especially caregivers. And caregivers are at near double the risk for developing cognitive decline themselves because of the stress that creates in their lives. And there's no Food and Drug Administration approved cure for many of these disorders. Okay, let's go to the next. I remember that. So basically, we like to show this with the idea that it'll hopefully plant in your brain that there is a tsunami of cognitive difficulties sweeping not just the US, but the world right now. And so it's appropriate for us to stay wise and do what we can to, let's see, next. To very good. Thanks, Michael. People are concerned about this, and for good reason. Yeah, if you look there at the various ailments, some of the most common ailments in our society, especially for those of us who are getting older, and of course we're all getting older, are major contributors to cognitive decline, like diabetes. People with diabetes or even pre-diabetes. There was a study there. Um, let's see, in New Zealand, I believe it was, talking about um, people who had blood sugar issues, uncontrolled blood sugar, they weren't even into what's called the diabetes area. They're pre-diabetic, had serious cognitive decline and more shrinkage in their brain. I'll show you a little bit later about that. But depression, head injuries, high blood pressure. We'll talk a bit about that, PTSD and other stress. People that have experienced those are all at higher risk for developing cognitive decline, especially as they age. So our target with these products, etc., and outreach is to basically everyone who wants to ensure brain health, because almost everyone has one or more of these conditions, and especially if they had that among family members. So what's needed to maintain a healthy brain? Okay, well, the first thing is good nutrition. It's taken a while for the medical community to get a handle on that because early on, in the 1900s at least, nutrition was not seen as that great. Herbalists and others were even sometimes referred to as quacks. The real medicine was slice and dice and pharmaceutical medications, but none of that has worked with Alzheimer's and other age-related cognitive issues, not even for improving memory, really, or seldom do they work even for minor memory issues. But since the turn of the century, in the 2000s, there's been a lot more research on the importance of good nutrition. And we'll talk a little bit about some of that research. But they found that one of the primary causes of cognitive decline is malnutrition or inadequate nutrition. And as we get older, as seniors oftentimes don't eat as well as when they're younger, as they age, and don't eat the right foods, and they don't have as good a digestion. So digestion and assimilation, no matter how good your diet is, if it's not digested well and assimilated, it's not going to get to your brain. And even if it's digested and assimilated well, it doesn't get to your brain unless you have good circulation. So we're going to talk about a few things that can facilitate that as well, so those nutrients and oxygen can get into the brain. And then finally, the brain needs a reason to absorb these nutrients. And having a purpose and learning new things is important there. Now, this is a picture of a neuron. Uh, that is where memories are made and transmitted, etc. And you can see there are a lot of different working pieces there. That's kind of the object of this. And each of those different areas has different nutritional needs. There's a variety of areas that need a variety of nutrients. On to the next, if you would. Let's approach this from a little different angle. What does the brain need to succeed? Well, on a biological basis, we want to look at the primary composition of brain structures. They need, of course, those nutrients. It used to be thought that the brain was kind of immune to nutritional problems, but now we know it's just the opposite. The brain really is a bit of a nutrient hog, just like it's an oxygen hog. It needs a lot of the right nutrients to run well, or it can malfunction in various ways. So, what is required to make neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers that make memories? Talk a bit about that, and what's needed to create the energy for thinking and remembering and other cognitive functions. But we're going to start this discussion by talking about what's needed for protection. Next, if we can go to that. Now, this is not my slide. This is a slide developed by Dr. Thomas Shea, who is a professor at Harvard University, and then he was invited to be the director of the biology department of University of Massachusetts. Dr. Shea's mother died from not from Alzheimer's, but it was from other age-related cognitive decline, we could say, from dementia. And so he set out to try to find, being a biologist, he was more into nutrition, trying to find what were the nutrients that the brain needed most in order to avoid these complications. And this was in his slide presentation, one of the basic comments. Note, he said that current studies, I assume you can read it all, but in case some cannot, current studies suggest that cognitive decline may be a disorder of oxidative stress. Now, as I was going through this, I thought it would be fun to have a little quiz. If this was live and we were in a room, I would suggest that you think about what you know on these topics, and as I go over some of these issues, think about the ingredients in the NUMI products that might address those. Looking at oxidative stress, what addresses oxidative stress? Well, if you've read any of the material that you know, then that's glutathione. Glutathione is the granddaddy of the elements in our body that particularly address oxidative stress or free radicals, etc., as well as mitochondrial damage caused by some of these free radicals in the memories, in the energy centers of our brain, the mitochondria. And he notes that that is way ahead of these classic hallmark plaques and tangles and loss of brain cells that are talked about in relationship to Alzheimer's, etc. But we see housekeeping troubles with managing oxidative stress. So this is, if you want to maintain a healthy brain, of course you want to start way before that happens to address the contributing factors. And as he notes, oxidative stress is one of the primary factors there. Okay. And so what is that? Basically, it's a rusting. It's like a rusting that occurs in our body. I noted that our body needs a lot of oxygen, and they need a lot of fats. And with that combination and other things, uh, we have this kind of rusting effect. And you can see off to the right there, what the body produces to address that are antioxidants to arrest those oxidants, as it were. So the rusting of proteins can occur from a lack of dietary antioxidants. Let's go to the next slide. To quench those, they're oftentimes called free radicals. We used to joke that California is not the only place with free radicals. Berkeley, California, we have these free radicals in our body, and of course, they're quenched most effectively by glutathione. Now, look at this slide on as we age our mitochondria, these energy generators in each of our cells. Each of our cells has these. In some cells, there are up to 1,000 or more of these. They generate the energy needed to think and remember and everything else. And here we've noted some of the things that can adversely affect the mitochondria. On the right side, you see homocysteine. That's a marker of inflammation, particularly for the brain and the vascular system. And then there's free radical oxidation and toxins. All of those are affected, or primarily not homocysteine as much. Some B vitamins help those, particularly B12 and folate. Eating your vegetables can be helpful. But the inflammation, free radical oxidation, you see, when the mitochondria produces energy, it joins oxygen to the food we eat to produce energy. But there's a byproduct from that, just like in an engine of a car has exhaust, and these free radicals are kind of the exhaust from that energy production in our cells. And again, the primary way to quench those, to keep them from damaging other cell bodies, is through glutathione. Okay. Um, I I might mention just to give you uh, a real story, a real illustration of that working with a friend of mine, actually. He's 88. He's a bright guy. He was a professor of business, and now he's having some real problems. And I was talking to him about some other issues, but I asked him about his what he's been diagnosed with and etc. And he noted that he's has some lung problems, and they have him on a variety of medications, and he had some lung problems and some heart issues and cognitive issues and kidney issues, etc. And I said, I think I know something that can be helpful for that for you. And so this just happened the day before yesterday. And I thought, I'm just going to go back and check and see to make sure that the glutathione is associated with these. And so I looked up on my research assistant, AI, do people who have ailments like, well, first, lung ailments, how's their glutathione? Is that an issue there? And in each of those, glutathione was noted as extraordinarily low for typically for people with lung problems, for people with heart problems, and cardiovascular problems, for the brain and for kidneys. In all of those, there's a glutathione, lack of glutathione, and so I think we all know a product that can help with that. Um, so. Um, yeah, he's trying that now. We'll have to see what happens. On the left side of this slide, you'll see some problems related to glucose or sugar. In particular, they can damage proteins through a process called glycation. And these deformed proteins can create plaques that can adversely affect the brain and build up and cause some real problems there. But there's an element in one of the Numi products, a nutrient, that can help combat that. Do you know what that is? Well, I'll tell you in just a little bit. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so what we just talked about creates this death spiral. I'm probably running a little bit behind, so I'm going to go through this, kind of skip through this. But there you can see that impaired mitochondrial energy, well, you can start that anywhere. We'll start it at the bottom. You have more reactive oxygen species, or these free radicals, this oxidative stress that is created. If that's not somehow quenched uh, with antioxidants like glutathione, then we're going to have some damage to proteins on the other end, and that will include damage to the proteins and the structures of the mitochondria that create energy. So then we have less energy production, more reactive oxygen species, etc. Okay, next. And I just mentioned what the fix for that is. What else does the brain need to succeed? Well, as I noted earlier, a variety of nutrients. In one studies, it was noted the nutrients that are provided in like seven servings of vegetables and fruit, as well as healthy fats like omega oils, omega-3 fish oils, etc., and olive oil and avocado oil and some other fats that are important for the brain. If you want to find out more about those, you can go to our website at abcbrain.org, step one, and it talks about the more ideal diet for the brain. But on digestion, we talked about even if you eat well, if you don't have good digestion, and if your lungs aren't working well, you're going to have some problems. We do know some things that can certainly be helpful for the lungs as well. But even if your digestion is going well, by the way, let me just note that as we get older, our digestive system typically doesn't work so well. We tend to have more problems with heartburns, what we typically call it, GERD, etc. And some of the medications, unfortunately, the people who are given to address those block other nutrients that are vital for the brain, like magnesium, as well as some of the B vitamins and other nutrients, iron and other nutrients that are important. But even if you have good digestion, we still need that circulation. And we're going to talk about two nutrients that can be very helpful in that regard. Physical activity is the other thing that's strongly encouraged to maintain a healthy brain. That's probably been studied more than any other activity, or more than any other variable, is physical activity. It's just, especially as we get older, we need to get off our seats and get out and be moving around. I know I sit on my seat more than is good for my brain, and I have to continue to nudge myself to take the dog for a walk or whatever. But physical activity is very important for maintaining a healthy brain. And finally, learning new things. Um, Having a reason to get up in the morning and absorb these nutrients is the process of learning new things. And also a good night's sleep is critically important to maintain a healthy brain, to enable the brain to renew itself during the night. Let's go to the next one, going during night hours. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this. If you know somebody that has a craving for sugar, especially if they're starting to have some cognitive difficulties, warn them against that. I once asked Dr. Shea what he thought of sugar because there's a lot of adverse information about it. And he said, Dave, sugar is like poison to the brain of a senior. So just keep that in mind. And again, there's an element in one of the Numi formulas that can help against that. But that's something we pretty much have to avoid in our diets if we don't want to have some of the problems typical of cognitive decline. Next slide there. Here are some other neurotoxins, and I just want to mention these because as we'll follow up with, if you have too many of these neurotoxins, it's going to be hard for Numi products like Neuro to work effectively. So it's just really important for people to identify what their risk factors are. And here are some of the most common ones. You'll see sugar is one of them, and things that people eat all the time, like fried fats, and we're not smoking as much, but there are unfortunately like 200 legal, these are not illegal, these are illegal drugs that can have been shown to adversely affect cognitive processes and memory, like anti-anxiety medications can contribute to cognitive decline. But there's other things, concussions in our environment, pesticides, um, auto emissions, solvents, glues, and electromagnetic fields are getting more publicity these days. There are just a lot of things out there that can impair our cognitive functioning. Next, please. And here are some of the ailments that are associated with those or conditions. Nutritional deficits can result from not eating the right foods, eating too much of the wrong foods. Genetics play a significant role here. But some of that can be compensated for if people eat right and know what to do. Cardiovascular problems, as I mentioned, anybody with high blood pressure is at higher than normal risk for developing cognitive decline because that's when you have high blood pressure, your little arteries are getting narrower, and that's what causes them to greater pressure within those. But there's something in one of the NUMI products that can address that. Well, several things that can address that quite effectively. Um, we talked about diabetes, traumatic brain injuries, lack of physical activity and obesity, lack of mental activity, um, and prolonged stress and depression. And as I went over those, were there elements of these formulas that can be helpful? Certainly with the traumatic brain injuries. Glutathione can be very helpful in addressing that. Maybe one of the very best things that seems to be helpful there. And let's go to the next one. And again, sleep deprivation. If you weren't on the last call that I did for or with Karen, I guess it was four. She was not available for that one. I told about a woman that I met after giving a presentation at an independent living facility for seniors. She came up and said that she had about 2.5 years ago, she fell backwards and landed on a concrete floor, and it caused major damage to her brain. She was in intensive care for a week, and after getting out of intensive care for the past 2.5 years, every morning she's awoken with a debilitating headaches, debilitating headaches is the term I needed there. And that was just not long after the new NutraSwish came out, the enhanced formulation. And I said, there's something I'm familiar with it. I don't know how much it can help, but glutathione I know can be very helpful. I've talked with enough people, particularly in NUMI, who've had traumatic brain injuries to know that that can be very helpful for that condition. So let's see. So I'm running out of time here. But long story short, I convinced her she ought to try that. I said this can take a while, it could take a few weeks. And I asked her while I was explaining it to her to take a swish of that. Um, and just one swish. And then swish it around in her mouth or one cup, one of the cups, and then that evening you take one before going to bed. And then the next day to take one more of those, and they just keep bumping it up until she gets relief. Well, the next day, I got a text from her the next morning, and she said, "My headaches are gone." Now, they came back to some degree after that, but with a week or so, it was they were totally gone. I mean, that was amazing to me. Um, if, if we don't get a handle on these toxins in our environment, if our diet isn't good and we don't get enough sleep and other things, then as this picture illustrates, you can see a normal brain on the left. We can end up with a more shrunken brain on the right, particularly as I noted with the study on the harm that sugars can do. Next slide. Um, Two questions. Where can people go to learn more about what might be causing their cognitive difficulties? Let's just go to the next slide because I'm running behind here. This is our website. Um, www.abcbrain.org. You might want to write that down. It's a simple address, but remember it's abcbrain.org, not .com. But if you go there, you see in the right-hand corner there, there's an oval that says personal assessment. We would strongly encourage people to take that personal assessment. Let's go to the next slide. Michael, and keep up with this. Um, let's see, how we know cognitive decline is preventable and even reversible. Um, Now, I'm going to come back to the importance of that personal assessment in a minute, but for those of you who haven't seen one of my presentations before, just be aware that there is research going on all over the world showing that cognitive decline is, especially in the earlier stages, the earlier the better you can catch it, um, can be reversed. But even significant cognitive decline and can, in studies, have been shown to be reversed, even dementia, etc. Particularly the studies out of Finland with over 1,000 seniors there, studies throughout Europe. The Netherlands are conducting some studies. There's some really interesting research that's been conducted in New Zealand following the research of Dr. Bredesen from UCLA in the US, Dr. Dean Ornish, who is famous for coming up with a healthier heart healthy diet. And there's Dr. Shea's research that I had the privilege of being involved in with the University of Massachusetts. Dr. Lewis from Miami's come out with a new study showing that even in latter stages of these areas with the right nutrition, things can improve. Let's go to the next slide. And now people happening all over. Dr. Bredesen notes that it's kind of like a house with holes in the roof. The rain can get in, so you need to patch up these different holes. Let's go to the next one. Slide. So we can patch the holes with good nutrition and other healthy habits and therapies. Then once the most important needs are met by the brain will begin to heal itself. It's quite amazing what it can do. Um, let's go to the next slide to talk about two ways an assessment can be helpful. We talked about the importance of that. This looks like they're a bit out of order here, but a good assessment can help you or your friends, clients, family members identify other conditions that might mitigate against um, or impair the efficacy of the NUMI products like Neuro. These are great products, but I'm just want to emphasize that they work better if people are doing the right things, like if they're getting enough sleep and the oxygen that they need and the energy that they need at the cellular level. If their circulation is good, if they're physically active and mentally active, they're going to do better on neuro if they're watching those things. Go to the next, if you would, please. So, yes, basically reiterates what I just got done saying. If they do what follow the guidelines on our website for how to address these various risk factors, then these products are just going to be a lot more effective in helping them maintain a healthy brain. On to the next slides. And so I apologize for taking a little bit more time than I wanted to. Hopefully that's been helpful for you. But now let's get down to what the ingredients, particularly in neuro, we talked about glutathione from the NutraSwish, but let's look at what's in neuro. We talked about the importance of circulation. Even if you're eating well, if you don't have good circulation, you're going to have a problem. Well, L-arginine is a protein that helps create uh, uh, nitric oxide, which relaxes our blood vessels and allows them to dilate so blood can flow through them more easily. Okay. Um, Caffeine, I think we all know that caffeine can make us more alert, or typically there's not a lot of caffeine in here from a healthy source, from green tea. Calcium ascorbate, that's a form of vitamin C that helps the body create glutathione, and there is some L-glutathione, the protein that helps with that, and L-cysteine. Dr. Shea noted that as we were looking at the oxidative stress being a primary contributor to cognitive decline, in his formulation, he had a form of cysteine in that to create more glutathione so the body can produce more of that. Let's go to the next one, Michael. Magnesium helps to calm down the brain. There's something called neuroexcitotoxicity. The brain can get overexcited. The nervous system can get overexcited. Magnesium helps to calm that down. And if you can get it across the blood-brain barriers, some new research has shown that can help with long-term memory as well. Acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter for memories, is called choline, and acetylcholine helps the body produce that. Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter. Choline is the primary building block for that. Acetyl-L-Carnitine was another element that Dr. Shea had in his formulation, which, by the way, was extraordinarily effective and helped improve the memory and mood of people with 60% of the people in our study with significant or major cognitive impairments. So anyway, so one of his, I mean, he spent 10 years studying to try to find the best nutrients, and acetyl-L-carnitine was one of the most important, as well as phosphatidylserine is one of the best for mental health. It helps maintain the integrity of the cells in our brain and our neurons. L-theanine, if you know somebody that has anxiety, L-theanine helps us calm down and stay focused, kind of helps some magnesium that way. And let's go to the third list of elements there. Oh, yes, just a note on acetyl-L-carnitine. Helps break down the fats in our body to convert that into energy and helps with other conditions associated with cognitive decline. It helps with these neurotransmitters and even to stimulate brain growth factors. And let's go to the final ones. We're getting close to the end here, folks. Ginkgo biloba also can facilitate blood flow in the brain and has a bit of antioxidant properties. MSM can also help with reducing that inflammation and some of the free radicals in the brain. And curcumin has been shown to also help remove inflammation in the brain and helps in the body produce glutathione. And then it's vitamin B6, pyridoxal 5-phosphate, is what helps prevent that glycation, the damage to the proteins by sugars and heat and other things. So let's go to a couple more slides, I think, and we'll be wrapping this up here. So what else does the brain need to protect and heal itself? Well, this is just a review. We've talked about these. So we're saying there's a great formulation of nutrients in neuro. It's just, yeah, a great formula that's been shown to be extraordinarily effective. But a healthy, it works better, I'm saying, if you have a healthy diet, if you have good circulation, if you exercise, in addition to the L-arginine and ginkgo, etc. If you have, you can do some things that help to reduce your stress and avoid neurotoxins, get a good night's sleep, continue learning new things, all can contribute to maintaining a healthy brain. And I think it's the final, let's see, are we at the next to the final slide? Do I need more or less? There's something called biological individuality. Some will need a little more, some will need a little less than what's on the body. Just be aware of that. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, just a couple of cautions here. People on blood thinners, because of the ginkgo, it's good to have them talk with their doctor first. It's a bit of a blood thinner or anticoagulant. If they have an AFib or pacemaker, again, it's probably a wise idea for them to check with their doctors. These are very safe formulations, but it's always wise to check, especially if they're taking a variety of medications. Some people are on blood thinners, and that can create a bit of a problem for taking a lot of neuro, because that has a bit of a natural blood thinner. Um, you may need to precede some of these issues like head injuries with NutraSwish. So have them take that for a while first before introducing the neuro, even though there's some of that in there. And scroll down on our website to the blog. If you go there and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see our blog. And last month was all about NutraSwish. So you might want to go there to learn more about that and how that helps the brain. And now let's see, are we at the final? Let's look at that next. Right. So if you have any questions, I know I kind of rushed through this. Feel free to email me. Both my address, I think, and number are on our website. But feel free to contact me if I can be of some help to you and those that you serve. Thanks very much for your time.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let me just change cameras. David, that was amazing. Who agrees? If you do, type it in the chat. And I haven't actually been reading the chat during this process. So if people have been typing questions, I apologize, we haven't seen them. That was so informative. And I'm going to say something because David's talked about ingredients, as I said. He's talked about his experience with cognitive decline and things that can help. And he mentioned the ingredients in our products. For those people who are brand new and watching this for the first time, let me just explain this. I've been fortunate enough to be supplementing with glutathione, for example, one of those ingredients with a glutathione precursor for quite a long time, at 20 years. I was affiliated with Steve Scott, our founder, with a great product, twice the price of what we're doing now and way less effective. The evolution of delivering the nutrients started with things like precursors, which are now yesterday's hero. Then they moved through to liposomals, lipids, which are fats, to help things absorb, and hydrostat, which is exclusively through NUMI. We shrink the particle size down under 10 nanometers, which means you can absorb into a human cell. So we amplify the ingredients. So we've got an already proven Ginkgo Biloba ingredient, for example, that I remember taking in my 20s. But now we're delivering it in a way that's never been delivered before, for faster absorption, much more bioavailability, and making those ingredients a bit more potent. So I want to thank David for presenting today. We're going to open up a Q&A now in the Zoom room here. If you're watching us on Facebook and if you're watching us on YouTube, goodbye. We'll say good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. But if you want to join us here in the Zoom room, Numi TV, we'll be having a private Q&A now as